At InDigital, we know the public safety professionals hold themselves to a high standard. In fact, standard doesn't do it justice. In over 25 years working alongside you, carrying millions of calls over our IP networks, your dedication has inspired us. That's why our ESI Net goes beyond industry standards, not only i3 compliant, but designed to adapt to future development for a network you can count on when it matters most. Learn more at indigital.net.
If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital, a leader next-gen core services, and a big shout-out, as always, to patrons of the podcast, whether you are on Patreon, Circle, or Facebook. Thank you so very much, but especially all of you who are watching, listening, and supporting and sharing. I wouldn't be able to do what I do if it wasn't for all of you. So thank you very, very much. And there's a lot that's been going on as usual. I'm actually fresh back from the National NINA Conference that was out in Kissimmee at the Gaylord, and just a lot of cool things that happened there. And met a lot of people, caught up with a lot of people, of course, right? But then met a lot of new folks as well. I taught 2 different classes. One was Recruitment Through the Power of Storytelling, which is a 1-hour slice of a 2-hour segment of an 8-hour course that I teach. And it was a lot of fun, man. Standing room only. And so it was packed. And then, of course, I did my Imagine Listening session, packed, just a lot of people in there sharing stories. And I believe it was one of just a handful of Imagine Listening sessions that I've been doing for almost 8 years now that there were no written stories. It was all audio. It was awesome. So thank you, all of you, for being there. It was excellent. It's July 8th right now. By the time this comes out, it'll probably be towards the end of July, and we'll be going into National APCO, which a lot of stuff going on there as well. And hopefully by that time, book number 2 is launching there. A lot of things going on with that. I'll be making some announcements, and you'll see what's going on. So stay tuned for all of that. And again, just a lot of excellent things going on. I just thank you for all the support. For those who are watching and listening right now, as you can see, I'm wearing a green shirt. And I've got a green screen in back of me, and I turned, that's so stupid. I turned it on just to see what it looked like, and it was weird with my head just floating around. Obviously, all of you who are listening audio only, you don't know, but you can just imagine just my head floating around on the screen. So stupid. Anyway, I am excited for my guest to come on, and we're going to be talking about a lot of different things. So my guest today is Brandon, and he is a 911 professional out of a regional emergency communication center out of Western Massachusetts. What's up, man?
How's it going?
It is going well. It is, I don't know what it's like over there where you're at, but it is hot as hell over here. It's just like dispatch. It's either hot as balls or cold as balls. So I don't know.
Yeah, it is. It's fucking hot. It's gross. It's yeah, I don't even want to. I mean, I don't even want to take my dog out. Like, we're going to the backyard and he's looking at me like, can we go do our thing? And I'm like, no, you're gonna burn your paws. No, I'm not dealing with all that. And so he's actually in the other room whining because he's like, man, who are you talking to in there? Come on, what are we doing here? You know, there's stuff
Right.
to do. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Also, his dinner is at 5, and this is about the time that he tries to
Oh no.
strong arm me into being like, come on, you know it's in the fridge, you know it goes in the bowl.
Oh,
Let's just do this. So
that's hilarious. So he's kind of like Snoopy, and he's gonna grab the dish and like whip it at you, like just
100%,
feed me
100%.
already.
Or he's just gonna keep pawing the fridge until I finally get sick of hearing him do it, and then I go, okay, fine. This is the. I always say this is the only time, and then at this point, his dinner's just at 4:30. It's not at 5. It's just how it goes.
So he has supper then is what it is.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
supper.
Yes.
Oh man, that's hilarious. Well, I'm excited to have you here and to chat with you and everything, get to know you, hear your story. There's a lot of stuff that we have to cover. So let's jump right in, man. How did you get started in
Absolutely.
public safety to begin with?
Yeah, so it was about 2016, 2017. Or actually even before that, around 2015. I was a security guard at a local mall, and I was, you know, mall copping it around for a while. I got promoted to what I call super mall cop. I was a supervisor, and the pay was disgustingly low. I was getting older. I mean, this place had no benefits. It had nothing, and I wanted to get into public safety. I didn't know if that was EMS, fire, or police. I was 21 at the time. Almost 22. So I was eligible to at this point become a police officer in Massachusetts or a firefighter, paramedic, and so my cousin at the time had been a firefighter for a long time, full-time firefighter. And when I was younger, I did a ride along with him, and like once I did that, I was like, yeah, that's it. Like that's what I want to do. Like 16-year-old me at the time was like, I want nothing more than this. So as I get older, through at that mall, I worked with a lot of police officers that did details on the weekends, and we formed different relationships, and we would talk a lot. And I'd ask them like, what is what's the best way? Maybe not the easiest way, but the best way. Like honestly, like if you don't know if it's for you, look up dispatching, do some research, get into dispatching. It's obviously two very different jobs, but you'll get a feel for how things kind of work within a police department or a fire department or like through an ambulance service. So I was like, it's not bad. I lived in Springfield at the time, and Springfield Emergency Communications was hiring in Massachusetts, and I applied there. I applied at a bunch of different places, and I'm thinking, I don't have any of these credentials that these people are looking for. There's just no way in hell I'm going to get any of these jobs. Like this is going to have to be like, I don't know what I'm going to do, man. I don't know. Maybe I just take the civil service test and send it and go, like, I don't know. And then Springfield called me for an interview, and I was just like, no freaking way, dude. There's no way. So I'm like, all right, yeah, I'll go. And so I interviewed. I thought it went pretty good, but I was like, again, I'm young. Like, there's no way in hell that this is going to happen. So I ended up leaving the security job I was working and actually went to another campus security job in Chicopee, Mass. And it paid more. It was going good, but I was like, again, I don't want to do this the rest of my life. Like, I want to do something else. So I was thinking, like, maybe I go to EMS school. Maybe I go back to college. Maybe I do something, because I don't want to be doing this. I went to high school. College wasn't really it for me. So anyway, long story short, I just got hired at this security place. Like, I was there. I think I was still on my probation period. Like, I don't even think I did the full 90 days. I was there probably a month and a half. And the director of the Springfield Police Dispatch Center calls me. She goes, "Hey, great news! We want to offer you the job. Would you A, do you want it, and B, are you able to do the month-long academy, which starts in about a week?" And I'm like, "Yup, yup, sure am." And I asked her. I was like, I thought, I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was one of my friends fucking with me. I was like, who is this? What is this? I'm like, is this a joke? And she was like, "No, this is so-and-so." And I was just like, oh, fuck, I look real dumb for asking that. And I was like, all right, cool. Yes, I would. So I went up to my boss at the time, and I was like, "I know you just hired me, but yes, what? Because like, and I told him, he was like, dude, he wasn't even mad. He was like, dude, that's amazing. Like,
Oh, well,
I
that's
can't, I,
good.
like, oh yeah, he was like, because a lot of people that go through like those types of jobs, um, that are younger usually go into public safety roles, so like it's kind of like that stepping stone in a way. And he was like, I was like, listen, like, I was like, I feel awful. Like, I know you just hired me. Like, I feel super bad. He's like, no, like it's all good. Like, do what you want to do. Like, if that's what's going to get you to what your dream job is, like, go do it. And I was like, all right. He's like, if it doesn't work out, you can come back. And that it worked out. So I did not go back, but
Wow.
so I there I was. I go to the Springfield City Hall, I fill out the paperwork, and I gave my notice, and there I was going to. This was the first time I had ever been like really, really away from home. And there I was living in Middleborough, Massachusetts, Monday through Friday, and was in training from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. every day. There was a month-long academy in Middleborough. I and the other dispatchers that I was hired with went through this academy, which was a really great experience, I think, because we got to really form a good relationship. Like, I lived with the guys, you know what I mean? Like, every week we kind of like rotated who was going to bunk with who. And then the women obviously had different, but we all hung out all the time. Like, we all went out to dinner. We all got breakfast together. We like did stuff after class. Like, we lived together for a month, and I formed these great relationships with these people. And we also went through, so, after the academy, now it's like in-house training. So now it's learning about the Springfield Police Department. And at this time, Springfield only dispatched, it was separated between police and fire. So I was on the police dispatching side, the primary PSAPs. We took all the 911 calls. So we did in-house training together. We did on the floor training together. And it was a great experience. It was a great training program. I know not all agencies do that. The agency that I work for now does an amazing job of training, I will say, but not everyone does that. And that's where it all started, was Springfield PD around 2017. It was a lot.
Holy crap. Okay, hold on here. Hold on.
There's lots to unpack.
So, I mean, it's okay. Hold on. Let me start here. Did you even get a chance to do like a sit along or anything, or you just knew and you went in? Like, I mean, because you had the academy as well, but did you have a sit in before the academy, like during like the hiring process? Did they bring you in and say, we want you to look around, and maybe sit here, listen to a few calls, see if it's something you really, really want to do?
Nope, I sent it.
Oh, so it was just whoop.
Yep,
just throw you right in.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
Okay. So
no, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, it sounds like as well, when you were in the academy and you're bunking with all these folks and everything, I mean, you guys could have had like a reality show, like
100%, yes.
living there together,
100%.
doing all this stuff together, learning all of this stuff together. It's cool though that so two things, having the support on both fronts. So like the person that you spoke to, that you said, I know you just hired me, but check this shit out. And that person was like, dude, do it. And if it doesn't work out or whatever, you can come right back. So that's really cool there, one. And two, the fact that you were with all of those folks and you were learning and going through all of it together. I mean, that's almost the equivalent of like a buddy system or buddy program, so to speak. These are all the people that you were in that academy with together, and you're bunking and learning and just experiencing all of it together. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, really, it was just it was a lot of information in a short period of time, for sure. Like, they had to cram in, like, obviously there's certifications that you need to be a dispatcher in Massachusetts, like, no matter where you go. Like, you had to do that, and then they threw a bunch of extra. So it was a lot of information in a short period of time. And then we went over to in-house training. So, like, very long days. It was definitely stressful, but I think that just everybody kind of hanging out after the fact and grabbing food and just kind of relaxing after that definitely made up for it. And I lived in Western Massachusetts at the time, so the drive was like 2 hours. to the academy. So on Monday morning, I'd leave around 5 a.m. And then, stop, get something to eat. So the time I got, to the training center, it was almost 8. So I just kind of hung out and then went at 8. And then after class on Monday, we'd go check into the hotel. And so, it wasn't like if, I was like, I kind of want to go home. You don't really, it's a 2-hour drive. So like, you can't really like go home and like hang out with your friends. So
Right.
it was a little weird at first, but you get used to it. But again, it was a lot of information in a short period of time, but the way that it was presented and taught was really good.
See, and that's a good thing as well, because there are some places out there where you start learning all this stuff and they're like, we can do flashcards. You're like, okay, but who am I going to do this with? Like, is there anybody there
Right.
to do it afterwards? Because otherwise, I mean, I don't know. It's not as fun when you're doing it by yourself, but
Right.
to have all those folks there to be going through it with you and the information presented in a way that's easy to process, because as we know, 911 is there's a lot of shit that happens in 911 and you
There
have to
is.
process so many things so quickly. So when you are when you start getting in there, let's just say in the beginning there in the academy, and then when you started doing the in-house stuff when you were in there, was there anything that surprised you? Like when you walked in and
A
you
lot.
saw when you saw everything there, like just so for everyone who's watching and listening, so that they can picture this as well. Let's focus in on you walking into dispatch that first time. What do you see? Like, do you see a bunch of monitors? Do you see several people working at the same time on the floor? What is it that you see?
Yeah. So, and just to preface too, for those that are listening, watching, or doing a combo of both, every agency, if you don't work in this job, might have different setups. So this was just the one setup that Springfield had at the time, and I don't know if it's like that now, but they had call takers on one side of the room, and then you had radio operators on the other side.
Mhm.
Call takers will take the call. They will send the call into the computer to dispatch system. The radio operators will take it, and then they kind of filter through priority. So, like, obviously, shots fired versus loose dog. Shots fired is going up first.
Right.
So the first time I walk in, it was busy. It was like 2 o'clock on a day shift, and I walk in. Everybody's on the phone. The radio's going off, and the supervisor was like, "All right, guys, just like look around, but like they're busy, so just don't even talk to them or anything." And like I'm like people are yelling back and forth at the radio operators. They're like, "Hey, for Main Street, that guy, he's like half fucking dead. Get somebody over there." And then somebody else is just like, "Well, I got a crash over here and I got an overturned car." And I'm just like, are they fucking paying them extra to say this shit? Is this real? I'm like, there's no way. There's no way this is. And like, because like that's how it, because even though if you send the call on the computer, like things can change, you know what I mean? In
Right.
a
Yeah.
half of a second. And it's just a lot easier to be like, hey, Steve, that's on radio or whatever. This just happened. FYI, you might want to get it out, and then Steve can be like, oh shit. Yeah. Okay. Hold on. Who do I have? What can I do? And then just everybody's just on the phone. And I was just like, I can't like, I fucking love this. And I think I'm nuts for it because this seems like chaos, but like it's got to be organized chaos because there's no way that all this shit is going on and there's not a way of doing things. And so like, you're hearing the radio and you're hearing the radio operator just like giving out calls, answering their officers and like attaching them to the calls and just like, and like we're just like walking around and watching everybody work, and I'm watching them. They're typing the call for service. They're looking at their mapping in 911. They're looking at everything, and I'm just like, holy screens! That is a lot of screens. And I'm like, I'm like, this is insane. I mean, how do you get a what? And so we were just in there for probably 20, 25 minutes, and it didn't slow down. And I was just like, I cannot wait to get in here. I cannot wait. And then like somebody started calling out like a foot chase, and like it really started to get like busy. So the supervisor was like, all right, let's get out of here. Let's go. And I was like, no, like 5 more minutes. Let's just see how this goes. And he's like, we're just gonna and I just remember I walked out and I was just like, that was that was so fucking cool. That was the coolest thing. I was like, dude, I can't. And like, it's yeah. So when you when you walk in the room, on the right side were the call taking stations. On the left side was the radio operators, and in between was this like little kind of like path, this little like hall.
Mhm.
And it so when you walk into your right, again, there's call taking stations, but to the back of you, to like the right side, there's like a supervisory station, and that one is if there's a supervisor working, that they can, whether it was the dispatch lead or dispatch supervisor, whoever's in that like leadership role for the day, would sit up there and kind of just like make sure everything was going good, like there wasn't anything missed or anything like that. But I was just like, I'm like, this is amazing. And so after that, we went back to the training room, and like, all right, like what do you guys think? And I was just like, when do we get in there? When do we get out of here and go in there? Um, and then that's when he was like, all right, so like this is how it works. And once he explained it, and I was like, that makes so much more sense. I was like, all right, I thought there was like no rhyme or reason. He's like, no, no, no. Everything that you saw in there was exactly how like it should go. It looks crazy, it sounds crazy, but they all know what they're doing. You guys are gonna know what you're doing. And like at one point, you're gonna be the one telling the radio operator, hey, XYZ. Or the radio operator's gonna be like, hey, can you do a callback? This car, we can't find whoever called. And like I was like, let's do it. Let's speed this up.
It's being a
Let's
chaos coordinator, man. Like
yeah, 100%.
that's
100%.
exactly what it is. And I try to tell people as well, like just the way you explained it, and a lot of times their jaws are dropped. Like, are you just telling me that? And like, no, like that's how it can get. Like there are moments, some moments, depending on where you work, the area that you're in, where there's sometimes not a lot going on, and you're just kind of chilling, waiting for something to happen. But in some of the bigger areas, man, it is constant. It is just
Yep.
going and going and going. And you're either working 8 hours, 12 hours, or it could easily turn into a 16 or an 18 hour, depending on
Yep.
if people call in and you're the one who's there and you're going through all of that. And so when I very first started dispatching, it was for a small PD in a small city in Florida. When I moved back home to Southwest Michigan and finished off my career, though, it was at a central dispatch. And I remember walking in the first night. It was a midnight shift. I sat with my trainer, and we had the umbilical cord going, and I'm
Yeah.
I'm just I'm
Yeah.
just listening. And the first call she takes, I'll never forget it, man, because it didn't seem like there was a lot going on at the time when I got in there. Because when I got in there for that midnight shift, it was only a 4-hour shift. I was supposed to be working 1A to 5A. And I go in, and the first call that she ends up taking, and I'm listening, this guy goes, yeah, so I thought I saw like a deer or something, crawling on the side of the road, and I was going to call to have somebody come out and to basically put it out of his misery, but it's not a deer. And obviously, my trainer's already gotten all the information to get somebody over there, and we had someone going over there already, but they stepped it up once they found out that it was actually a guy who was crawling on the side of the road. And what it was and I'm sitting there listening to this like, holy shit, like what? This is not what I expected night one to be like.
What are we
And
doing here? Yeah.
right. And I already had like about 4 years of dispatch experience from Florida and now over here in Michigan. And so I'm listening, and the guy, or what ended up happening was, the guy who was crawling on the road, he had tried to commit suicide with a shotgun, and he slipped and shot his jaw, and he was hanging off the side. Like it didn't go off, like it didn't fall off. I mean, it was just hanging from like a chunk of like meat. And it was just there off the side. And I'm sitting there. I remember my eyes just being popped open. And I remember my trainer just kind of looking at me and then looking back and finishing up the call. And everybody got out there and everything. And the guy lived. The guy lived and everything. That, I think, if I remember correctly, they had surgery and stuff. Actually, as many times as I told that story, I don't think I've ever told the rest of it, but I'm pretty sure he had surgery and stuff, and he ended up being okay. But I just remember after that call, my trainer looking at me and she goes, "Are you all right?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm ready to go. Like, let's keep going." And she's like, "Oh, okay." She goes, I thought like maybe you were going to be done. Like this wasn't what you wanted to do." I was
That
like,
was
"Hell
going to be
no."
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, "Hell no." I was like, I've got experience. I said, "I've listened to some shit." I said, "I wasn't expecting to hear this night one." but
Yeah.
but here we are. So looking back at your beginning though, you said that there was a bunch of things that surprised you. So what were some of those things that surprised you right off the bat?
Yeah. So, I mean, definitely, well, we were training, we were told, hey, listen, you're gonna have car chases, you're gonna have foot pursuits, you're gonna have shootings, you're gonna have, all of these things that like you hear about and you see on social media, like you're gonna take those calls. And I was just like, because my understanding of like what happens in the world at the time was just based off of what I've seen on the news or
Mhm.
social media or something like that. And
Right.
I like, I'm like, okay, I'm sure it's gonna happen, because this is a police department and people break the law. Like that's why we have the police. So I'm sure at some point, but like, I was not ready when it happened. I remember my first foot chase that I took on the radio. It was a guy. I dispatched out guy with naked by a hospital emergency room with a machete, was walking up and down like the hill that the hospital was by. And
What?
somebody said he had like a white thing on his wrist. So I was like, okay, so that has to be like the bracelet you get when you go in. I'm like, so he either left the hospital like AMA, or he was discharged, and then I don't know. So I send a 2-man car down there, and I start another 2-man car because he's got reportedly a machete. And the guy just sees the cops and just books it and just runs. And he's naked with machete. And so now the whole world starts calling about this guy because it is a very busy hospital. And okay. So that department's policy for foot chase is just you just echo whatever they say. So if they say I got one male running up Chestnut Street, you just okay, one male running up Chestnut Street. Here's the description.
Mhm.
The description was very short. It was a white male naked, so not much we had to put out there.
Right.
But um, it went on, and they got him to drop the machete, and he dropped it. He was taken into custody, and I guess it was he had taken, I think it was PCP or something, and I don't know. He just walked out of the hospital because at the same time that we had this foot pursuit, the hospital had called and said, "Hey, we had this guy in our ER. He took PCP. We don't know where he went, but here's all of his info." So anyway, like nobody got hurt. Everything was fine. That was my first foot pursuit, and I was just like, my second foot pursuit was actually two at the same time in two different parts of the city. It was in like complete opposite ends, and it I mean, they had the same street names, like they sounded the same. It was a lot. But that of course it went fine. The bad guys got arrested, nobody got hurt. Um, and then like I was taking vehicle pursuits, and then shots fired calls that were actually legitimate shootings. Like I had one guy call and say he was very calm, and he was like, "I need an ambulance." I'm like, "All right, get his information." I'm like, "All right, so what do you need an ambulance for? What's going on?" He's like, "Well, I was playing with my gun and I shot myself." And I'm like, just like that, just like he was
Oh,
talking about the weather. And I was like,
geez.
I'm like, "Oh, okay." Stay on the phone for the paramedics. Don't hang up. And I'm just like, why is he so? So we transfer the call to the paramedics. They start doing the EMD portion, the emergency medical dispatching. And they were like, "What happened?" He's like, "Oh, I was gonna go clean my gun and I shot myself." They're like, "Well, where'd you shoot yourself?" He's like in between my legs. And I was just like, "Oh no."
Oh, dude.
He shot it right off, clean off. Yep. And he had the bleeding controlled, and I was like, he's got to be going into shock. There's no way that he's this calm But anyway, they got out there. He got to the hospital. Like, he survived, from what I understand. I don't know if things got sewed back with what they're supposed to be. I don't know that part.
Oh,
But
bro.
I'll never. I know. I'll never forget. Just like, yeah, I shot myself, and I'm just like, all right, this guy is either like there's a mental health issue, or he actually like accidentally shot himself, and he's just like accepted that he's fucked up, and there's nothing he could like. I don't know.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah. So it just.
And in the wiener, no less. Oh my
Oh
God.
yeah. I couldn't at that point. I would have been like, I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna
Dude.
drive. I don't know. I don't know.
See, those are the calls for those who are watching and listening. Those are the calls that a lot of times you end up like in the back of your mind, or after the call is over, you just ask yourself, like, is this real life? And it is. Stuff like that happens.
I say it all
mean,
the time. No one's gonna believe this. No
right.
one's gonna like. I get off the phone. I'm like, people are gonna think I'm gonna make this shit up, and like, I am not making this up. Like, the amount of stories I have just based off of like, I can't even begin. But I mean, there's some stories I've told family and friends, and they're just like, come on, like, be real. And I'm like, I'm 100% honest. Like, this shit happened. This is not a joke. Like,
Right.
people actually call 911 when McDonald's doesn't get their order right. People shove stuff up their ass a lot, like an alarming amount. Like, it's real.
It definitely happens. I remember being in dispatch and taking a similar call, not in that spot, but this guy calls and said that somebody was trying to was trespassing on the property, and they shot him in the thigh. And so we're getting everybody out there, right? Like, this is going balls to the wall crazy in this call, and everybody gets out there and hang up with the caller, and EMS checks him out and everything. And then it turned out there wasn't anybody. He was cleaning his gun as well and accidentally shot himself in the leg, but he was so embarrassed
He had to come up with
that
this.
he came up with a story that
No.
somebody else, because he thought that, well, no one's ever going to catch this, person. The person
Right.
vanished like a fart in the wind, so
Yeah.
they're never going to catch them. But nope, the person ended up admitting it, and I'm thinking afterwards, bro, isn't that more embarrassing that
Then they had to
made up?
explain this bullshit story because you were
Right.
too afraid to come out and be like, listen. Like, I just like because that wasn't the only time I've taken that type of call. I've learned that there are a lot of people that listen. It's your Second Amendment right. You want to have a gun, you want to train, you want to do it. That is your right. I am all for it. But pay attention. Just it's the
Pay
number one
attention,
rule
take some
is
classes, something.
yeah, point it in a safe direction. If you're gonna clean your gun, fucking unload it. Unload. You have to unload it. You can't. Different conversation for a different day. But
it was unloaded.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Oh, dude, that is crazy. Okay, so you're going through all of this now. I do have to ask, because it sounds like there was a lot of folks in that academy. How many that were in your group, how many of them made it through? Did everyone make it through, or did some end up deciding after a while, like, maybe this isn't for me?
So everybody made it through. There
Mhm.
was only one that actually rescinded their job offer the day before the academy started.
Oh,
So
okay.
like that, I just think is I don't really know what happened there.
Yeah.
But everybody that went through the academy, everybody passed, everybody did well. Now, out of that class, I think only me, and I think there was 6 or 7 in that class. I think there's only me and 2 other people that are still dispatching out of that class.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 2 of them actually stayed at that
Life
department. 2 stayed. They never left. I ended up leaving and kind of coming back. But yeah, I would say definitely just me and those 2 other guys. Yeah, that's it from that class. Yeah.
Wow. So you end up going through all of that that's going on, and there's a bunch of different calls that happen. Do you remember like your first call or some of the earlier calls that you had in the beginning of your career?
I do. My first 911 was I'll say disturbance
Mm-hmm.
between a brother and a sister. The laws in Massachusetts related to these types of calls are very, very strict for good reason. So I'm going to give out a lot of heavily edited information.
Oh, for sure.
She was upset because her brother decided to urinate on her mattress, defecate on her mattress, and then I don't know if I can say this, so if we got to edit it out, we can edit it out.
Sure.
Ejaculate on her mattress.
Dude, what?
Oh, I'm not done. I'm not done.
There's more? Like
There's more.
But wait, there's more.
Oh, there's more. The reason he did this was because he had a lady of the night, I'll call it, who was into these types of things. So there was also her bodily fluids all over her mattress. Now, I had asked, I was like, valid reason to be upset? I'm like, is there only one bedroom there? And she's like, no, this dumb motherfucker has his own room and just went into mine and did it. And I'm just like, oh, that's really fucked up. That's extra fucked up. Like, that is, like, dude's got his own room and his own bed. And he was like, nah, fuck this. Let's go in there. Let's fuck up her room. I'm like, that is
no.
So she's pissed, and he's in the background just like, no, please don't say that. Please, I'm so embarrassed. Please, please, please. And she's like, no, fuck you. And I'm like, I'm kind of on her side. Like, you can't say that, obviously, you know?
right,
like,
right. Yeah,
but
yeah,
like,
exactly.
But like, honestly, fuck you, dude. Like, fuck that guy. That's ridiculous.
Wow.
And so I gave instructions like, hey, I'm like, I had just started and I didn't think this question through. I was like, is there any way you guys can go into like separate rooms before the officers get there? And she was like, are you fucking kidding me? She's like, I can't. And I'm just like, that's a good point. That is actually that's my bad for asking that. That's totally on me. And I was like, ma'am, I'm so sorry. I did not mean it like that. I was like, what about if you go in the kitchen and he goes in his room? She's like, no, he's going to go in the shit room. And I was just like, okay.
I know,
like, so
like, that's your decision. Like,
yeah, as long as you guys are separate, so I don't think it ever got physical. And I think the disposition, he ended up just leaving. I believe that she ended up burning the mattress is what happened after.
I mean, I would have burned that mattress
but that was my first call. And
welcome to dispatch.
I look over at my trainer and I'm just like, what the fuck just happened? And she's just like, welcome. I'm like, what? So that was like my first call. That was actually my first 911 call ever. I will never forget it. That was my first 911 call ever.
That's kind of a hard one to forget, especially with all of that going on. I mean, there are a lot of disturbances that come in that, a lot of people will say, well, I mean, it's all domestic violence and this and that. I'm like, well, a lot of the times it's verbal, it's not physical. I mean, domestic violence is domestic violence, right? Whether it's verbal or physical, either way.
Absolutely.
But a lot of times they'll say, well, are they, people calling in and are they like straight up fighting? I said, well, I mean, honestly, there have been a couple times where, people that I've spoken to, like it starts out where you can hear the physicality of the call. On the other hand, there are also phone calls where it's verbal only, they're separated, and you end up hearing something like mine one time early on in my career where this guy called in because he was having an argument with his girlfriend. I believe he was in his 40s, she was in her 60s, and they lived in an RV behind a friend's house, right? So but the reason he was calling as well is because she won't leave the RV, and so I'm trying to keep them separated. I've got officers that are headed that way, and I hear out of nowhere as I'm asking questions, he goes, she's throwing out my spam. She is throwing out my spam. And I went, is this what? Wait, what? and I hear her in the background yelling, "You don't eat that shit anyway." And so right, so I'm trying not to laugh because those who are watching and listening, it is our job to not only keep you calm, but we have to stay professional as well. But in the
Yes,
back of our minds,
yes.
we're like, "What? Like this really is happening right now?" And so yeah, she's throwing out his spam from the RV, and that is what he's the most upset about. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I dig me some spam and eggs every so often, but damn, like so
You know what I'm not gonna do? I'm not gonna call the police if my girlfriend throws out my. It's not gonna happen.
it
I
was
just
it was something else. I mean, I had a couple guys who would call. They were roommates, older gentlemen, and they called at least once or twice a week. And for some reason, I almost always was the one getting the call from them. And one of them, just
doesn't it
as an
always work out
example,
like that? I feel like
right?
it's always the frequent flyers that you have. There's always that one dispatcher that no matter what, they
Yes.
could be off for like a week vacation. The second your ass sits in that chair and that phone rings, it's fucking Johnny and Steve at 123 Main Street, and you're just like, it's like they know. I swear to God, it's like they know that like Brandon or Ricardo, they are back at work today at 4 o'clock,
Right. Like,
and they're
time
like,
to
hey,
call.
yeah, they're like, hey, do you want to get into an argument? Because he's working right now, so like we could fucking talk to him. You know what I mean? And it's just like, what are we doing here?
Well,
Come
one
on.
one of the arguments was because the other guy finished the cereal. And another argument was because the dude was watching a show, his turn was over, and he didn't wanna give up the remote, and I'm like, "Okay, we'll send somebody out there." And
Hey, when that happens,
here's the thing too for everybody who's watching and listening, it's everything that comes in, as ridiculous as that just sounded, we always have to be, professional, of course, because that's what we do, but we always put it out as it's high priority.
yep,
It's an argument that's going on because in 911, just like in life, anything can happen because
yes,
that
I've seen
person
those
could
calls
easily
go.
turn the spoon into a
Yep,
weapon. So
and I've
we
seen
have
that
to do it.
before. And that happens and it might not even be between each other. Like I've dispatched for, domestics where,
Mhm.
female is calling about her boyfriend or significant other, and he hits her, he assaults her, and she gets hurt, and he gets arrested, and the next thing you know, I've got officers, send me more cars, send me more cars. I got one resisting. Now she's trying to beat the shit out of the cops because they're taking him away. And she's like, well, no, I didn't want to do that. I just wanted you to scare him. It's like, that's not how it works. Like
Yeah, yeah,
and
no.
I've seen silly, and I don't want to say silly domestic speak, and I will preface with this: domestic violence is disgusting.
Right.
It's fucking gross. If you're gonna beat on your partner or verbally abuse them, I've gotten go to jail. Just go. Like
Right, yeah.
but there are some domestics that you get like the cereal thing or the spam thing, and like in your mind you're like, okay, this is a silly verbal thing. Like I'm sure they'll work it out. And next thing you know, they call back and they're like, hey, he just shot me or he just stabbed me. And you're just like, we were just arguing about fucking frosted flakes. And now we're like,
Right, yeah,
these things escalate.
anything can happen, yeah.
Yep.
That's why you
Especially when
always
you
gotta be
mix
on the
in,
ball, man.
exactly. You mix in alcohol and drugs or heat, like on a hot day like today, I
Yes,
guarantee my
cabin
agency,
cabin fever.
absolutely. And that, like during COVID too, I mean, domestics, you were getting a lot of like petty arguments of like, well,
Right.
he threw away the hand sanitizer and like, where the fuck do we get more? And it's just like, I mean, valid point, but like, come on, it was a lot of like, listen, we're all in this together at the time. You know what I mean? Because, in a way we were.
Right.
And, have you ever had to, during a call, like play someone's therapist, like, or like be a parent? I had one, I don't remember where but I remember it was a boyfriend and girlfriend. They were young too. I think they were juveniles, or like almost 18. And they were mad they were just arguing about something, like someone was texting someone or Snapchatting something. I don't know. And I was just like, they were like going at it. And I'm like trying to get a word in. I'm like, hello, like, hey guys, hello. And I finally I rose my voice just a little bit. And I was like, listen. And like, they both stopped talking. And I was just like, put me on speakerphone. And so he does. I'm like, listen to me. I'm like, you're going to go in one room. You're going to go in another room. We're not going to argue about this. All right. It's not like, and I just remember they're just like, okay, sorry. And I'm just like, don't apologize to me. Like, apologize to each other. I was like, what you guys are arguing about is so insignificant. I'm like, and you guys aren't even going to remember this in like a week or two. I'm like, you're calling out the cops. And I'm like, if you need help, like, we're going to help you. I was like, but listen, you go in one room, you go in another room. Don't even look at each other until the officers get there. You stay on the phone with me. I don't want to hear another word unless I'm asking you questions. And they're like, all right, sir. And I was like, don't call me sir. I didn't say that. But at the end, like, it gets to a
You're
point
I
where you're
work
like,
for a living.
yeah, like it gets to a point where it's just like, dude,
I mean,
you
sometimes
know,
you have to take control of the call that way,
oh,
and
100%. And
I've had the same where, I've got I'm speaking to one part of the party. My partner is on with the other one, and they stand up and they're looking over their console and they're like, "Ricardo, I've got your other caller over here." I'm like, You know what? Put them on hold really quick." And I tell this person, "I'm going to talk to your partner here. Hold on just a second. Put them on hold. Get the other one." And I'm like, "All right." And then I have to mediate there until an officer gets there because, like, and for those who are watching and listening, the officers aren't just around the corner. So it's up to us to be able to go through and do that. So with all of that said, I mean, there's a lot of times that you've got these calls coming in, you have to mediate and everything, and I think that's one of the things as well that the public doesn't understand, that when people are calling in, but also the fact that 911 is going and going and going. It's like people would say, "Well, I was calling in on for this emergency or whatever." I'm like, "Yeah, your emergency isn't the only one that's going
right.
on," but and you have to say that in the most polite way without, like sounding like a dick, because even saying
Yes.
your emergency isn't the only one, that could, like, definitely someone could pull that and just be like, he was being a jerk to me. I'm like, no, I wasn't being a jerk.
No.
I was just simply trying to tell you, like, there's emergencies going on all the time. And
Right.
so you've got people calling in, and when officers are headed there, you got to fill in that time as well with your ability to speak, ask other questions, especially when there's, just for example, a person who's calling in that's suicidal, and if help isn't there, like close, that is, you have to keep that conversation going to keep their mind off of what it was that they called
Right.
for to begin with. So a lot of times people will say, I mean, you guys just answer the phone, right, and send out help. And, like, there is way more, like the amount of hats. It's funny that you just went like that, because I said the amount of
Yes.
hats. We did
Yes.
not plan that, I swear. The
Yeah.
amount of the amount of hats that we wear, therapist, and just everything. There is so much that goes into this where, it's not surprising that sometimes people get into it and they're like, you know what? I don't think this really is for me.
Right.
because
Yeah.
because there's so much that goes on with it. So you've gone through all of this stuff. So you've been dispatching for about 5 years, but there was from 2017 to 2020, there was a break there, and then you came back. What happened exactly? We were talking a little bit before, and there was some email correspondence and such. You were involved in an accident, right? Something to that effect. What happened?
Yeah. Yeah. So it was Veterans Day of 2018. I had just started working at the West Springfield Police Department as a dispatcher, um, and I'm at this time. I think I was only employed for maybe 3 months with
Mhm.
them. So my girlfriend at the time and I were actually going to go and meet up with some of my friends that were in the military, and we're going to go hang out, have a couple of drinks, whatever. So we were on the highway, and a very large deer jumped out in front of us, and we had no time. She was driving, zero time to stop. So the deer pretty much just jumped into the car. So that happens, and airbags is deployed. It was it was a shit show. Not gonna lie. Um, so we are on the side of the highway at this point, kind of in the breakdown lane, but kind of in the travel lane. Um, I take out my phone, and I always promise I'm not going to call 911. But this is bad. Like airbags deployed. I could feel some pain, but I'm like able to move. You know, I could wiggle my toes. My girlfriend at the time was very upset. Obviously, this is her first accident ever. She hadn't even been in like a fender bender or anything. I had been in like a couple of minor accidents at that point, and at this point, I'd also been dispatching for a bit, so I know like, hey, you got to stay calm. Like if she's we got to do. I need to get 911 on the phone. I need to get somebody out here. I need to figure out where the hell we are on the highway. Because I was a little bit disoriented. The airbag definitely smacked me in the face, and I was kind of like stunned. So I'm on the phone with state police or 911, which I think was answered by state at the time, or they might still be. And I pass out. I don't remember. I remember looking up. I remember seeing white, and then I remember nothing. So I wake up and so I wake up to a firefighter putting a blanket over me. And I'm like, my first thought is like, I'm not fucking dead. But then I was like, wait, am I dead? Is this what just happened? And so I hear somebody say, hey man, I got to put this blanket over you. We got to cut you out. The door's jammed. Don't move. And I'm just like, I mean, I knew the deer was big, but was it that fucking, I'm like, what? And I remember like wanting to speak, like trying to speak, and I couldn't do it. I could think, but and I could like open my eyes, but I couldn't really see, but I could think. And I remember just being like, what the fuck are you talking about? And they start with the saw on the door. Sorry, I'm petting my dog because it's
no, you're
close
fine.
to dinner, and he's just like, I don't care what you're doing right now.
He's like, help me, please.
Yes.
Come on, Human.
And if I stop petting him, he's just gonna bark until he
No, you're good, man. Go ahead.
But he'll be all right. So they, I hear the saw cutting the door. I see sparks flying like above my face, and my girlfriend is just like saying my name, and it was weird. It was like somebody turned the volume up, I guess, and I could finally hear. She's like, Brandon, 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 and I could just hear the saw. And then I like move my hand, and I can like it hurt, but I could move my hand, and I like go over, and I touched her arm, and she's like, Brandon, is that you? But I couldn't speak still. Like I wanted to speak, but I couldn't speak. So I like just tapped her arm or something, but she couldn't, like she was asking, like she's like, talk, and I couldn't talk. I felt the door like pressure from my leg get kind of like relieved, and then a rush of cold air. And then it was very quick. Blanket was off me. I was on a headboard. They put something around my neck, and I was on a stretcher. And next thing I knew, I was in an ambulance. I don't remember. I remember I passed out. I remember waking up in this room, doctors everywhere. They are cutting off my clothes. They're asking me questions. They're yelling. Like it was just this chaotic scene. And I remember I'm like, I don't really feel pain. Like I don't feel anything. I'm like, I'm fine. Like in my head, I'm like, I am fucking fine. Let me go home. But again, I still couldn't. I don't know why I couldn't speak. Like I still don't know. And they turned me. And when they turned my body, I felt the worst pain I've ever felt in my entire life. And I screamed. And they were like, he's up. And I'm just like, was I not? Like, it was so. Next thing I know, I'm getting brought into a CT scanner. I have x-rays, being brought to the room. I have IVs. I have 2 in each arm. I've got doctors asking me questions. I've got, I'm being brought to another CT scanner, and then they're doing an ultrasound, and then they've got orthopedic. Like they have all these doctors. So anyway, my parents, I'm in the trauma pod of the hospital, and my mom, my brother, and his at the time fiance Nick all walk in the room, and like I'd never seen my mom that calm, but also a look of like, holy fuck. And I'm like, what happened? And she was like, you were in a really bad car accident. You and I don't want to say your name, but your ex were in an accident. You guys hit a deer while you were on the phone with 911. A driver hit you guys going about 90 miles an hour. And I was just like, no, we didn't. I was like, no, mom, that didn't happen. we hit a deer. She goes, no, you hit a deer and then another car hit you about 5 or 10 minutes after while you were on 911. The last number on your phone was 911. And I was just like, the doctor comes in and goes, hey, Brandon, how are you feeling? And at this point, I could barely breathe. I was in the worst pain I've ever felt. And he was like, listen, I'm like, when do I go home? He goes, you're not going to go home for a long time. He said, you broke your spine in 7 spots. You shattered vertebrae in your spine. You herniated discs. You broke every single one of your ribs. You punctured your lung, your liver, your small bowel. You have a severe concussion. You have multiple lacerations all over your body. You're in very rough shape. You've also been bleeding internally, which is why we're giving you blood right now. You're not out of the woods. We don't know if you'll need surgery, and we don't know when you're going to be discharged. But you are very, very sick and very injured right now. So just, try to relax. And I'm like, I'm in a lot of pain. He's like, I can't give you any pain medication because of your punctured lung. Your oxygen level is already dangerously low, and that medication is going to make it worse. And I was just like, then let me go to the light. No, I'm kidding. But I was like, this fucking sucks. So, I spent about a month and a week or two in the ICU. And then I kind of made like a step up of recovered. I was, it was a very long road to recovery. I still have issues to this day from the accident. So why I left dispatching, I had PTSD. I had really bad PTSD. I was not nice to be around. I was terrible. I was moody. I was miserable. I fucking hated everything. And I hated being in pain 24/7. I hated feeling like shit 24/7. Things scared me that shouldn't scare me. I couldn't get too stressed because if I started to get too stressed, I would just shut down. And in a dispatch center, you can't do that.
Right.
And I'm working, I'm forgetting things. I'm asking people to repeat on the radio. I start to not really give a shit about what callers are saying to me and thinking that everything that they're saying is just bullshit. And, I made some mistakes, and it got to a point where I was like, I'm not well. Like, I'm not doing good. And I finally went up to, a buddy of mine that I work with, and I was like, I don't think I'm doing good. And everyone's like, no, like you're doing good. I'm just like, oh yeah. And it got to a point where I was like, I gotta go talk to somebody. And I put myself in therapy. I saw a psychiatrist and got on some medication, and it just wasn't enough working that type of environment where your sleep schedule is always screwed up. You're working a lot. You're around a constant stressful environment. I was like, I don't want to leave, but I also need to get better. Yeah. And I need to make money. I have bills, like the bills don't just stop. And it's because I love that department. I loved working there. West Springfield, I made a lot of good friends. The police chief was amazing. The supervisors were great. It was one hell of a place to work, and I had a lot of fun working there. And I know things are weird with the public and the police, but the guys, the men and the women at Westside are some of the best I've ever worked with, hands down. And I'm not trying to kiss anyone's ass. I will say the department that I work for now is also great. But I loved I really like working there, and it was a really tough decision. But I had to make it. I had to do something because I thought at some point I was going to get one of these guys hurt. I was going to accidentally hurt, one of the officers through a call, not getting information, or a citizen that's calling. I'm like, fuck this. I don't want to be a liability. I'm not going to do that. It's not these people's fault that I went through something really horrible and I decided to put off my mental health for all this time and my physical health. That's on me, And so I eventually, I went up to, I believe he's a captain now, but I think he was a lieutenant at the time. And I just said, hey, I got another job at a local life insurance company. I got to go. I just can't. And I was like, I don't want any bad blood. Like, I don't want, He's he's like, no, he's like, it's you've got PTSD. He's like, you got to do what you got to do. He's like, I think it's a good thing that you're going to slow down and you're doing that. And if you ever want to come back, we're here. And I was like, all right. And it was tough. And so I left and I worked at this life insurance company for about 3 years, and I fucking hated every second of it. And a lot of people I work with there are probably going to see this podcast, and I love the people I work with, but the work was I just didn't care about it. I really didn't care. Like it was not exciting to me. And it was corporate America. You don't go to public safety and then go to corporate America and you're able to transfer. It's not it. Like people would make like silly jokes, and I'm just like, y'all want to hear about this time I took a call about a guy that like died on the toilet? And everyone's like, wait, what? And I'm like, oh, we can't do that here. All right.
Oh man.
So I took off some time, and then I did a lot of work. I hurt people just of how I was and ignoring the fact that I needed help. And it sucks, the people that I hurt, I cared about and I loved. And, I had to deal with those consequences. But my message really is like, men in anywhere, if you're a man, you're pretty much taught you don't feel anything. You get over the shit and you dust yourself off, you get your ass up and you get back out there. And that's going to work for a little while. For everybody listening, that's going to work for a little while. It will. And then it's not going to work. And you're going to feel like shit. And you are not going to be well. And you're going to lose a lot of people that you care about. And they probably won't accept your apologies at the end of it. And really my message is, whether you're a man, woman, whatever you want to identify as, if you go through something traumatic, the worst possible thing you could do is not take care of it. Because you're going to suffer. You're going to make the people around you suffer. And you're never going to be yourself again. And I wasn't myself for such a long time. And I'm still working at getting back to that. And it's not going to be an overnight thing. It's not going to happen in 2 therapy sessions. You're probably going to go through a lot of medication trial and error. But eventually you're going to get there and you're going to feel fucking great. And life is too short to just put it off. And so now, where am I now? I'm back dispatching. I work for a regional center in Western Mass. I have a great boss. I work with great people, and I love my job. I'm happy. I love helping people. I'm in a much different spot than what I was about 4 years ago, I would say. I work we dispatch for 3 great towns. I'm very, very lucky that it all ended up kind of working out. And it's because I put in the work. And again, it wasn't easy, but if you don't put in that work, you will not get better. And that glass, the only thing that's going to happen is more water is going to get put in every day, whether it's a drop or a hell of a lot. And it's kind of like the saying, if you hold out a glass with a little bit of water, for 5 minutes, it doesn't really hurt. But after an hour, your arm's ready to fall off. And that's what it is. And my hope is that whoever listens or watches this, or a combo of both, if you've gone through something, go out there and talk to a friend. Look up resources to get therapy. You don't have to go on medication if you don't want to go on medication, but it's just going to help you out in the long run, because if your mind isn't right, the rest of your body is not going to be right. And that was really it. And again, I'm back. I love it. I'm back to how I was. It took me a little bit. It was weird going back to training again. But a very good friend of mine was actually my trainer, and it worked out great. I met a bunch of new people at this agency, and I'm happy. They're all going to listen to this, and I'm probably going to catch a lot of shit for saying how much I love them, but I truly do love everybody that I work with, and we are a little family. We might bitch at each other, we might yell at each other, but I wouldn't have it any other fucking way. I really wouldn't.
Well, it's like a meme that I see a lot, and it says, let's normalize telling our friends and our family or whichever that we love them, like make it weird. I think is the last part of it,
Yeah,
like make it weird. And I've lost a lot of people. A good friend of mine who was a dispatcher out of Massachusetts as well last year. Um, it'll be next month, a year ago next month. She took her life, and it's a long story, but it's one of the reasons as well that I tell people like, man, life is short. Like you don't know what's going to happen. Nothing is promised, and tell your people now that you love them, that you miss them, whichever, because you never know. And the same thing with like with what you're saying, as you're talking about your folks. I feel the same way with all the people that I worked with. They will always be family to me, those within the center and those out in the field as well. And I love that you're so open sharing your story, because there are tons of people who are going to hear this, and I can almost guarantee that those who are listening will feel inspired in one way or another to either seek out whatever help they might need, or to reach out to a friend, or someone that you haven't heard from in a long time. Check on them, see if they're okay, because there's a lot of people that are struggling in silence, man. We walk through our daily lives and we look like nothing is going on, that
absolutely.
everything is fine, but it's not always
It's
the
not,
case.
I always use the example of, listen, the night of the accident, I had no fucking idea my life was going to change forever. I had absolutely no idea. Like I wanted to either be a firefighter or a cop. I was using dispatching as like a stepping stone. I
Mhm.
had absolutely no idea when we were gonna go get a couple of drinks and eat some fucking cupcakes that I was gonna have my now ex and I were gonna have a life changing event that I have no idea why I survived. I have no idea how I survived because I've taken calls where people have died and a hell of a lot less. Like you ever take a call where it's a medical or an accident and you're like, oh, they should be fine, like it should be fine. And then you find out they die and you're like, wait, dude, what?
Right,
Like
yes.
it happens all the time. And you never know when your number's up. You really don't. And that's cliche. And people, I don't know, might think like, oh, whatever. But like, this isn't scripted. I'm not getting paid to come on here and like say
Right,
all
yeah.
this stuff. This is legit.
It's real life.
It's real life. And I hope, even if it helps one person, but like, I have been feeling like this, go talk to somebody. Go. Therapy is uncomfortable at first. It takes a little bit of time. You might get lucky and match with a therapist that you love and you click with. And I hope that's what happens. But it might take some time. And if it takes some time, let it happen, because at the end of it, you're just going to feel better and your family and your friends are going to thank you for it.
So when did you with everything that was going on, not just the accident, but also, the PTSD and everything else, when was kind of the moment where you felt like, I'm ready to come back? Because I think that's one of the things that a lot of people want to hear as well, is when, or and they've talked about to me as well, is that they're going through their process, whether it be therapy or, any other way to try to work on themselves. And then they're like, you know what? I'm ready. I think I'm ready to go back. Like, was there a specific moment where through your recovery that it just hit like light bulb, like I'm ready to go back. Like I'm me again, and I'm going back. Because it sounds like the way you were saying it as well, like, one, you were not a pleasure to be around, and there was a lot of shit that you were dealing with. But I feel like once we reach that point, because I hit a huge burnout, and there was a point where when I was like really dialing back into a lot of different things, because a lot of projects that I was doing, um it felt right. It just hit. It felt right, and I knew that basically I was having fun again, is a
Mm.
thing. So I guess what that was, that moment for you.
I think it was a couple of different things.
Hmm.
when I was working at the company that I was working at, I could kind of see that layoffs were probably going to show up, whether I was going to be affected or not. I kept getting a weird feeling like this doesn't feel right. I don't like the way that this is going. And then the big thing where I was like, you know what, like, holy, because the agency I work for now, I also worked at part time previously. Um, and so I kind of had a pretty good idea of like how things worked, and I knew some of the people, and um, had a what I will call it, because if I give out what happens, everyone's gonna where I work is gonna be very
Oh no,
recognizable.
you're fine.
A significant event happened in town with a first responder, and the first responder survived, and the person, which I don't really think you can call him that for what he did, but um, was arrested. And I remember hearing about it and texting some of the people that worked there, like, what the hell happened? Like, is everyone okay? And getting texts back and forth, like, oh my god, like I can't believe this happened. And I remember like just being like, I want to go back. I want to go back. This is I've had enough time, I think, away. And this big, like something like this in that area does not happen.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I want back in. I want back in. I don't know why that event spoke to me as much as it did or drew me back in, but it did. And I was like, I fucking want back in. And so I knew that they had been hiring, or they had an open position up for a little while for a full-time dispatcher. And I was like, I don't know. Let me text the director. I still had a good relationship with him. I'm like, hey, like, are you hiring for full-time? So he's like, yeah. You looking to come back? And I'm like, I'd like you full-time. Yeah. So we had some back and forth. I put in an application, interviewed. He hired me back, and haven't looked back since.
It's that I mean, it's that basic call for service, man. Like dispatch gets into your blood right away, and it's hard to get away from it. Um, I I recently created a T-shirt called it says Hotel Dispatch, and it has the same thing like Hotel California. Like you can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's just it gets into your blood, and it's that higher calling, man. It's you being part of something bigger than yourself is basically what it is. And I've heard a lot of folks like you as well who have decided, you know what, maybe I need a change or something, or they're burnt out or whatever, or also end up getting PTSD from a lot of things, and they work on themselves, and they end up working in just whatever else, what other line of work, and then they have that moment where they just feel like this isn't fulfilling. This is not
Yeah.
like it was before, and I want to be there for people. I want to help people. I want to help those that are out in the field, and they go back. They go back to dispatch, and then they love it, man, and they're just having fun again. And I'm again just really happy that you're on here, that you're here in general, that you're here, because holy hell,
Yeah.
that I can't even imagine. So when you were saying like the amount of like injuries and everything before you revealed that there was another car that hit, which very good storytelling there, because
Yeah.
I'm like, wait a minute, like that deer did that much damage, like holy hell. And then when you said that, I thought, oh yeah, there's way more to this. And the fact that you were in there for so long and just all of these other things, but now you're back, and again, you sharing your story, just thank you so much for sharing,
Absolutely.
for being open. And again, those who are listening are going to get something out of that, and there's going to be that inspiration for those folks to want to ask for help and everything. So I've got one last question for you before we go into the wrap up, or as we go into the wrap up of this episode, which again, it has been awesome to have you on here and hear your story. And again, holy shit, like what?
So, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been great.
No, this has been a lot of fun, dude. I could talk to you for forever. Like we're already going almost on an hour and a half.
I know.
It doesn't even feel like it's been that long.
No, it doesn't.
So going into the wrap up of this episode, and I ask this question all the time at the very end. If you could go back in time, you've got 5 years in now and everything that you've been through, all of your experience, just all of this that's happened. If you could go back in time to talk to yourself in the beginning of your dispatching career, not to change anything, just to simply give yourself some advice, what would you tell yourself?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think probably tell myself, all the things that they're telling you right now in training, it is 100% going to happen at some point. Pay attention. Because I think when I was in training, I think I was so shell-shocked, I guess, by like all of these things that are happening that I was like, that's not, I think I would have prepared myself a lot better for when I actually got on the floor. Pay more attention and don't think that everything that they're telling you is just to be like, hey, you never know. It's real. Yeah, definitely would tell younger dispatcher me, it's probably going to happen, man. Pay attention to this shit. Like this is like really, because, when these incidents happen, you're just like, and like a lot of people don't know, there's no manual when these things happen. You can't be like, all right, so let me back up. For like structure fires and stuff, there's like different alarms. Like you have a manual for stuff like that. But when a cop calls out a foot chase, you can't pull in a binder and be like, all right, what do we do here? It's quick. So definitely soak this in, pay attention, and be present. Definitely be present.
Perfect. Awesome, man. Thank you so much for what you do, for coming on and sharing your story. I appreciate it very much. And man, this has been an excellent episode. Thank you so much for everything.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. And yeah, I can't thank you enough. It's been great.
All right, man. I will be right back here with you in just one moment. And for all of you who are watching and listening, if you have any comments, questions, or you want to be a guest on the show, you can email us, and that's going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, that is wttpodcast@gmail.com. And you can follow us on social media. You can also become a supporter of the podcast as well. The easiest way to do this is to simply go to links.co/WTT podcast. And that's links with 2 i's.co/WTT podcast. You'll find everything there. Email, all the social media, where to follow, also where to subscribe to the YouTube channel, become a supporter, whether it be on Patreon or Facebook, and where to listen to the latest episode, and also get information on the Imagine Listening books. And also scroll all the way to the bottom of that link and you'll find all of the dispatch and podcast merchandise, and there are tons there. Those on the audio, you can't see this, but on the video, it's like a homage to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but it says emergency dispatchers, heroes in a headset. So there's a bunch of them out there right now. Make sure to check them out. Man, this was an excellent episode. Thank you again, Brandon. This live broadcast, well, I say live, this is pre-recorded, but you guys are watching as if it's live. And it's sponsored by In Digital, a leader Next Gen Core Services. And again, a big shout out to all of you for the support. I wouldn't be able to do what I do if it wasn't for all of you. So thank you so very much. A lot of stuff coming. And to listen to the audio portion of this, well, actually, let me say this first. To be able to watch this, you can see it on Facebook, YouTube, X, as well as LinkedIn Live. And then to listen 24/7 to the audio, you can listen on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone, and we will see you all in the next one.
You just listened to a Code 7 Network podcast. If you have any questions or would like to be a guest on the show, send an email to wttpodcast@gmail.com.